Welcome to Philippine Politics and Governance. This is again Sir Rai Castillo, your teacher here for this subject, second semester module number 7, week number 9. And let's talk about the Philippine Executive Branch. Now, for these learning objectives, you will be able to understand the executive branch of our government and able to appreciate the importance of the executive branch. And lastly, able to identify the roles of the executive branch. Now, we do know that there are three branches of Philippine government. Number one is the legislative, which makes the law. Sila yung gumagawa ng batas. As the senators, sa municipal level, they are the sangguniang bayan. Sa provincial level, sila yung tinatawag nating mga board members. At saka sa district level, sila naman tinatawag natin mga representatives or mga congressmen or women. Secondly, tinatawag nating executive branch. They are the ones who carry the law. And ultimately, the executive is none other than the president. But under him are the following: the president, the vice president, and the cabinet members. And also, the administrators of different municipalities, such as the mayors, the different province, the governors, and so on and so forth. And also, the judicial branch, which evaluates the law. They are the Chief of Justices, the Supreme Court, and the other courts. So, these are the three branches of Philippine government. It's the Constitution who provides a separation of powers. So, our Constitution, the highest law of the land, separated and gave the individual roles of the legislative, tagagawa ng batas, executive, tupad ng batas, at judicial, tagasuri ng batas. Now, here are again the executive branch, or they are the executives: the president, the vice president, the cabinet members, the regional governor, the vice governor, the mayor, the vice mayor, and the barangay captains. So, let's talk about our national executive. It's none other than the president, the country's chief executive. Executive power, or the power to administer and enforce laws and ensure are observed by the people, is entrusted by our Constitution to the President of the Philippines in Article 7, Section 1. The other members of the executive branch of government are the Vice President and the heads of executive departments, or the cabinet members. So, what are the cabinet departments? They are the Department of Agrarian Reform, Department of Agriculture, Department of Budget and Management, Department of Education, Department of Energy, Environment and Natural Resources, Department of Finance, Department of Foreign Affairs, Department of Health, Department of Interior and Local Government, Department of Justice, Department of Labor and Employment, Department of National Defense, Department of Public Works and Highway, Department of Science and Technology, Department of Tourism, Department of Trade and Industry, and Department of Social Welfare and Development, and Department of Transportation and Communications. The leaders of this department, or the cabinet executives, are called the secretaries. For example, Secretary Briones is the one who is leading the Department of Education, and so on and so forth. Now, the president has this executive power, has been defined as the power to administer the laws, which means carrying them into practical operation and enforcing their due observance. So the president has this executive power to implement the law. So they do not make the law. They can suggest to the legislative power or branch, but mainly the president is the one who administers the law and ultimately approves the law. After duman sa lower and upper house, at pag yan nasulo ng maigil, dadating sa presidente ang huling approval ng batas. Kung yan ay veto, ibig sabihin, uulitin at pag-usapan uli, or kung yan ay approve yung bill na magiging law. Alright, so the President of the Philippines is elected by direct vote by the people for a term of 6 years. 6 years only. He may only serve for one term and is ineligible for re-election. The term of the President of the Philippines starts at noon of the 30th June after the election. The qualifications, of course, is you should be a natural-born Filipino, talagang Pilipino, Pinoy na Pinoy. A registered voter, must be able to read and write, 40 years of age at the day of the election. and must have resided in the Philippines 10 years before the election is held. So there is no strict qualification like educational attainment, professional experience, or other requirements that required by the corporate world. Basta marunong magsulat at magbasa, pwede kang tumakbo ng presidente. So, ikaw, basta't ikaw ay 10 taon na nananahan sa Pilipinas at ikaw ay 40 years old and above na, pwede ka nang tumakbo ang presidente ng Pilipinas as long as kaya mo magbasa at magsulat, rehistrado ka, at ikaw ay natural-born Filipino. The Vice President shall have the same qualification and term of office as the President. So, parehas lang sila. May be appointed as a member of the cabinet without the need of confirmation by the Committee on Appointments. So, pwede silang ilagay. For example, nung umpisa, si Leni Robredo was appointed by the President to take over one of the departments in the cabinet. At I think yun yung sa housing, okay? So, noong una yun, member ng cabinet si Vice President as appointed by our dear President. So, pwede yung magkaroon sila ng ganong function. Re-election of President and Vice President. Absolute disqualification of President. Eligibility of the Vice President and the President and Vice President may be elected to a lower position. So, this is our, might be the reasons for the re-election of President and Vice President. Kapag disqualified yung Presidente, dahil sa kanyang crime na nagawa or because may sakit siguro siya. Kapag eligible yung Vice President, kapag hindi rin pwede yung papalit sa Presidente, at pwede din naman silang elect sa lower position. Now, the title President of the Philippines, Your Excellency, is Spanish and American regime. President of the Republic of the Philippines, first used by President Jose P. Laurel. Yung term na President of the Republic of the Philippines. Yung mahaba na yan, okay? Yun yung unang pagkagamit. And President of the Philippines when Commonwealth was restored in 1945 with the subsequent independence from the United States. President of the Republic of the Philippines used by President Marcos when he proclaimed martial law to distinguish his government from previous regions, which was altered specified by the 1973 Constitution. And then, the 1987 Constitution restored the moral traditional title, President of the Philippines. Wala na yung Republic of the Philippines. Alright? So, yun na yung nangyari. Ulit, na-restore na. At, pero unang ginamit yung Republic of the Philippines ng Laurel, tapos naging President of the Philippines sa 1945 Commonwealth government, and then kinuha ulit ni Marcos para ma-distinguish yung tinatawag nating government na martial law na establish niya sa Republic of the Philippines, sa previous Constitution. And ni-restore siya sa 1987. Alright? So, office or residence of the President, siya ay nakatira sa tinatawag nating Malacanang Palace. Okay? So, doon siya nakatira sa Manila, sa Malacanang Palace. Yun yung pinakang-bahay niya. At ang counterpart yan sa Amerika ay tinatawag nating White House. So, the assumption of into office, I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and conscientiously fulfill my duties as President or Vice President of the Philippines, preserve and defend its constitution, execute its law, do justice to every man, and consecrate myself to the service of the nation, so help me God. This is an oath from the Constitution, Article 7, Section 7. So both the President and the Vice President are elected by a direct vote of a Filipino people for a term, again, of 6 years. Okay? Now, here's the State of the Nation of Address. It is through the SONA, every, I think, June na ito ginaganap. It is through the SONA that the President reports the status of the nation and informs both chambers or Congress of his or her legislative agenda. So, yun yan. And hopefully, as a student, magkaroon kayo ng interest na panoorin yung SONA. Sayang, lumagpas, hindi tayo mabot. Parang first semester to. Kung ano yung mga projects, fulfilled projects, proposed projects, accomplishment reports ng ating punong presidente. Okay? So, yun na tawag natin State of the Nation Address or SONA. How about the compensation? According to this, the compensation, the salary of the president is 300,000 per annum per year. Or the vice president's salary is 240,000 per annum. So, according to the Constitution, Article 7, alright, so probably much higher than that. Okay, so yun yung naman stated that was stated sa ating 1987 Constitution. Probably iba na ngayon kasi iba na rin yung currency natin. mas mahal na siguro ngayon. Alright? So, Article 7, Section 2, yun po yung mga qualification for election into office ng Presidente. The power of the President. Ano ba yung mga kayang gawin ng Presidente? Number 1 is the power of appointment. So, the President appoints members and officers whose appointments are vested in the President. Yung mga cabinet members. Siya yung pumipili ng mga secretaries ng Department of Foreign Affairs, Department of Trade and Industry, Department of Education, Department of Finance, Department of Public Works and Highways, Department of Science and Technology, and every positions na sa doon ay ang ating presidente yung nag-appoint. Number 2 is the power of removal. Siyempre, kung kaya niya mag-appoint, he can also remove anyone from the position na under ng kanyang jurisdiction, ang power niya. Number 3 is the power of control. The president has jurisdiction over all executive departments, bureaus, and offices. Okay, so department. So, hindi niya control yung legislative, of course, hindi niya yung trabaho. Hindi niya rin control yung judiciary, hindi niya yung trabaho. So, all executive departments, provincial level, the mayors, the governors, and so on and so forth. Okay? So, power of supervision. It exercises general supervision over local governments but cannot alter or modify nor set aside what a local executive had done in the performance of his judgment. Also, he can perform a military power. Exercises the following military powers: called out the armed forces, suspend the writ of habeas corpus. Alright? So, dahil ang pinakang 5-star general ng Pilipinas is none other than the President. Siya yung Chief General. Okay? At kaya meron siyang military power. The rest are just 4-star generals. Only the President is the 5-star. Alright? Power of executive clemency. The President is given by Constitution the grant to reprieve, commutations, and pardons, and remit fines and forfeitures after conviction by final judgment. Remission of fines and forfeitures condoning the financial obligation and the return of properties confiscated by reason of offense or conviction of the offender. Okay, pwede yung properties or pera, pwede niyang yan. Pwede niyang ibalik, okay? Pwede niya rin i-confiscate, alright? So, number 2 is reprieve, temporary relief from or postponement of the execution of criminal punishment or sentence. So, kung merong kriminal na gusto niyong protektahan, halimbawa lang, or probably not yet proven guilty, pwede niyang munang i-reprieve. Temporary relief muna, okay? Malaya ka muna. Commutation is the charges of punishment to one which is less severe, okay? And then lastly is the pardon, act of grace that sets aside punishment for a crime or of an offense. So, yun yung presidential pardon. Kaya niya magpatawad ng kriminal as if walang mangyayaring criminal charges sa kanya sa pamamagitan ng presidential pardon. Kahit anong crime pa yan, kahit na heinous ba yan or ordinary crime yan, kahit na life sentence yan, pag siya ay nabigyan ng presidential pardon, totally malaya yung tao na yan. So that's one of the most powerful powers ng presidente, yung presidential pardon. Now, let's talk about the martial law. Sino bang gumagawa ng martial law? Sabi ko kanina, meron siyang military power. It is comprehensive sense. It includes all laws that have reference to and are administered by the military forces of the state. So, ginagamit ng presidente yung armed forces, particularly the military, to enforce the law. Okay? So, the military law proper, that is the laws enacted by the lawmaking body of the government of the armed forces. The rules governing and the conduct of military forces in times of war and places under military occupation. Kapag tayo ay nasa bingit ng gera, like for example, ang ating presidente natin ay nagkaroon ng martial law dito lang somewhere sa Mindanao or Visayas, dahil merong conflict na nangyayari doon. May mga bombings, may mga civil wars, may mga baril na nagaganap. So, ang ginawa niya, doon lang sa lugar na yon ay nagkaroon ng martial law para totally ma-secure yung mga tao doon, protected ng mga military against the oppositions or mga enemies or mga revolutionary armed forces. Okay? So, hindi lang to ginawa ni Marcos. That's my point. Okay? It can be done by any president, depende sa pangangailangan. Okay? At sana hindi sa personal gain. The basic objective or duration of the martial law is of course the basis, the right to declare, apply, and exercise martial law is one of the rights of sovereignty. The objective is the preservation of the public safety and good order. So yun talaga yan. Kaya lang, syempre, the people are being paranoid every time they see people with guns. Okay? Kaya palakad-lakad dyan, ganyan-ganyan, kanila, huliin sila, abusuhin sila. Pero hindi. Their objective is to preserve the order and peace doon sa society. The duration is being founded on necessity. Depende. The exercise of power may not be extended beyond what is required by the exigency which is called for. Pasat okay na, pwede niya itong alisin. Pag okay na, may peace and order, restore na. Alright. So what kinds of pardon? Kagaya na sabi ko kanina, there are two kinds of pardon, the absolute and the constitutional. Of course, the limitation upon the pardoning power, it may not be exercised for offenses in impeachment cases. It may be exercised only after conviction by final judgment. It may not exercise over civil contempt, and no pardon may be granted without recommendation of the Commission of Election. The effects of pardon, sabi ko kanina sa inyo, restore his full and political rights. Okay, pwede na siya tumakboling politiko, yung kanyang civil status ay okay na uli, as if walang nangyaring crime, and does not discharge the civil liability of the convict to the individual he has wronged. Does not restore offices, property. Alright, so, ayan, yung ating presidente, sabi niya nung September 7, 2020, just last year, it is my decision to pardon. We have not treated Pemberton fairly. So, i-release ko. Pardon. Yung pardon, walang question yan. So, yan, walang question yan. What is amnesty? Isa sa mga power ng presidente is the amnesty. The effect of the amnesty is the abolishes and puts in oblivion the offenses. Alright, so, ina-abolish niya yung mga yung mga offense, alright. So, pwede rin yung amnesty sa pera, kunyari, hindi mo na ito babayaran, yung mga interest, ito na lang mismong premium payment. Okay, so that's amnesty. And diplomatic or foreign relations power. Yung mga meron din power ang presidente, of course, diplomatic or foreign relations power. Meaning to say, pwede siya sa from one province to another, from one region to another. Meron siyang power dyan. And of course, sa ibang country din to the power to recognize new establishment, government, or state. The power to send and receive diplomatic missions. The power to report undesirable aliens. Hindi po ito yung aliens na galing sa mga UFO na galing sa Mars. Okay, hindi po. Ang mga aliens na sasabi po dito, sila po yung mga foreign people. Like for example, pumasok sa bigla sa jurisdiction natin, sa ating nautical jurisdiction, mga barko, mga bangka na nangingisda sa ating nasasakupan, okay? So, yun yung mga aliens, right? The power to enter treaty or international agreement subject to ratification by 2/3 of the Senate. The power to contract or guarantee foreign loans on behalf of the Republic of the Philippines with prior concurrence of the Monetary Board, okay? So, pwede yung mag-loan sa World Bank, okay? Ng buong bansa, ng mundong ito para mag-loan, para gamitin budget para sa improvement ng Pilipinas. Budgetary power, the President is mandated by the Constitution to submit to Congress within 30 days from the opening of the regular session as basis of the general appropriation by. Right. Now, constitutional safeguards to prevent abuse of presidential powers para hindi maging abusado ang presidente sa kapangyarihang itinalaga sa kanya ng batas. So, the Constitution provides many clauses that prevent the repetition of abuses committed by former President Marcos. Dito tayo natuto kay Marcos. So, the President's spouse cannot be appointed to any government post. Kaya wala kayo nakikita dyan. Yes, may First Lady, may First Gentleman, pero they were not appointed to any government post. Okay? So, bawal. Kasi si Imelda eh. The public must be informed if the President becomes seriously ill. Kapag may sakit yan, hindi pwedeng itago. Halimbawa, si Marcos na naman, punta sa Amerika, nagkasakit doon na namatay. Right. The President is prohibited from owning a company that does business with the government. So, bawal yon yung conflict of interest. So, mag-conduct ng business tapos meron siyang benepisyo o pakinabang sa gobyerno. The armed forces must be recruited proportionately from all provinces and cities as far as is practicable. Okay, so hindi lang pwede sa isang lugar, Davao, ang ating presidente, Davao lang siya kuha ng mga recruits ng AFP, no, but to every regions of the Philippines. The constitutional safeguards prevent the president from ruling indefinitely under emergency power. Martial law may be proclaimed by the President but only for 60 days. Okay, 60 days na lang. Okay, si Marcos, napahaba niya, kaya napahaba rin yung term niya. He or she has to notify the Congress of the institution of martial law within 48 hours. Hindi siya pwedeng mag-agad-agad na, okay, today I declare martial law. No, hindi pwede yan. Kailangan munang ma-inform yung Congress. Okay? At Congress, however, can revoke martial law by a simple majority vote. Alam mo yan, that's democracy. Okay? Pwede nilang girevoke yung martial law. Kaya yung ginawa ng Pangulo doon sa Davao or sa somewhere in Mindanao or Visayas na martial law, it was also voted or with the decisions made by the Congress. Hindi lang yung decision ng ating presidente. It was, of course, siya yung nag-author, siya yung nag-encourage, but of course with the approval of the Congress. Okay? So hindi na ngayon basta-basta sabi mo mag-martial law ko. Hindi. Kailangan na ang approval ng Congress. The Supreme Court may review and invalidate a presidential proclamation of martial law. Okay? Yung judiciary branch, pwede nilang, dahil they evaluate the law, pwede nilang pag-aralan yun. Alright? Kung valid ba yun or invalid. The President and Vice Presidents are not elected as a team. Hindi sila mag-aralan. Alright, the succession of the presidency at the beginning of the term under the, Article 7, Section 7 of the 1987 Constitution, in case of the President-elect fails to qualify, the Vice President-elect shall as President until the President-elect shall have qualified. Okay, so yun yan. If at the beginning of the term of the President-elect shall have died or shall have become permanently disabled, the Vice President shall become President. So, ito yung succession. Pag namatay Presidente, sino papalit sa kanya? Pag hindi able yung Vice President, sino yung papalit sa kanya? So, ito po yan. During the term, Article 7, Section 8 and 11, in case of death, permanent disability, removal from office, or resignation of the President, the Vice President becomes the President to serve the unexpired term. In case of the same thing happens to both the President and Vice President, the Senate President, or in case of his inability, the Speaker of the House of Representatives shall then act as President until the President or Vice President shall have been elected and qualified. So the Congress shall, by law, provide who shall serve as President in case of death, permanent disability, or resignation of the acting President. So, yun yan. Okay? So, pinag-usapan muna talaga bago mag-appoint or mag-elect or pumili na papalit sa Presidente at Vice President na hindi able to fill in the presidential position. Okay? So, ayun. Thus, the line of presidential succession as cited in Article 7, Section 10 of the 1987 Constitution are the Vice President, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Okay? So, yung Speaker of the House of the Representatives, sila yung pinakang Senate, parang counterpart niya is the Senate President of the Congress. Parang ganun yung counterpart niya. If the offices of both the President and the Vice President became vacant at the same time, Congress is required to enact a law calling for a special election. Nevertheless, if the presidential election is 18 months away, no election shall be called. So, kung malapit naman na yung election, 18 months away na lang, no election shall be called, mag-appoint na lang. Right? So, pwedeng, kung ano naman dyan, earlier than 18 months, halimbawa, 1 or 2 years pa lang, so, parehas bakante yung presidente sa kayong vice president, pwedeng maggawa ng law calling for special election ang Congress, okay? Para magkaroon ng election ulit ng President at Vice President. The succession of power, sa gisa ng Pangulo ng Pilipinas, the Executive President, and then the Executive Vice President, the Senate President, and the House Speaker. Okay? Now, the removal from office, paano sila matanggal sa kanilang pagiging Pangulo na bukod sa natapos yung kanilang termino. Okay? In Article 11, Section 2, both the President and Vice President may be removed from office by impeachment initiated by the House of Representatives and tried and decided by the Senate, the upper and the lower house. Okay, grounds for impeachment are as follows. Culpable violation of the Constitution, treason, pagtataksil sa bayan, okay? Labag sa ating konstitusyon, bribery, graft and corruption, pangungurakot, paggamit ng pera ng bayan, betrayal of public trust, okay? So yun, panloloko, pandarambong, at iba pang mga krimen, okay? Kagaya ng sa ating people power 2, okay? So, Pangulong Ejercito Estrada was charged with graft and corruption and plunder, and that's why the people of the Republic of the Philippines decided to join forces once again for people power to remove President Erap from the office. Okay? And then pumalit sa kanya ang Pangulong Macapagal Arroyo. Tinuloy niya yung termino ni Pangulong Erap, kaya naging 9 years yung service ni Pangulong Arroyo nung time na yun. Okay, dahil in 3 years hindi natapos na Erap, mas nanalo siya sa election, another 6 years, so 9 years naglingkod si Pangulong Gloria Macapagal Arroyo bilang Pangulo ng Republika ng Bansang Pilipinas. Okay, so I think si Marcos lang at saka si Pangulong Gloria Arroyo yung mahabang term ang kapag-serve. Lalo na si Marcos, 30 years yata. So, Article 7, Section 8, in case of death, so yun na rin yun, sinabi ko kanina pala. Alright, ito na yun, the same article, so 7, Section 8, with regards to the removal of the President. Okay? Now, let's talk about your weekly assessment. Okay, for the weekly assessment ninyo, ang gagawin lang natin ay napakasimple lang. This is just a true or false, okay? Identify ninyo based upon your readings and based upon this content ng module na ito, video lesson na to. So, this is just 1 to 10 and identify if this is true or false. Number 1, mayors, governors, barangay captains are under the executive branch of the government. True or false? Number 2, the absolute pardon of the president can forgive any criminal charges. Number 3, only Marcos as the President of the Philippines can execute martial law if necessary. Number 4, the President is a 4-star general in the military. Number 5, the President of the Philippines is elected by direct vote people for a term of 5 years. Number 6, President Jose P. Laurel was the first president to use the title as the President of the Republic of the Philippines. And number 7, a person who can read and write, a registered voter, regardless of his or her educational attainment, can run for president. And the President of the Philippines resides in the White House, and so means State of the Nation address, native address. And then, the executive power has been defined as the power to administer law and not to propose law. Alright, so this is it for our Philippine Politics and Governance, Module 7, Week 9, about the Philippine Executive Branch. So, we still have 2 branches of, ng government natin, the judiciary, and the legislative will be discussed furtherly sa mga susunod na mga linggo. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to chat me, message me, or ask me.